Hello and welcome. My name's Charlie Chafer. Well, today and this morning are our 17th Celestis Memorial Spaceflight. We've named it the Horizon Flight. And as I always say, the mission is for you. It's about you. It is something that is very compelling for you. The rocket today, the Falcon 9, which holds 143 spacecraft, which will set a record for a single deployment on a launch vehicle, includes the Spaceflight Industries Sherpa FX-1 carrier. I'd like to introduce is Mr. Jeff Roberts. He is the Senior Mission Manager for Spaceflight Industries. And we asked Jeff to say a little something about Celestis and what it means to him and to the people at Spaceflight to have your loved ones, our friends, on board.
My name is Jeff Roberts, and I'm the Senior Director of Mission Management here at Spaceflight, the company that is hosting your loved ones on their ride to space. First, I would like to thank you for choosing Spaceflight for this special occasion. It is an honor to provide this opportunity to remember your loved ones in a truly special and unique way. Now let me tell you about the upcoming ride. Your loved ones will be launching on a Falcon 9 rocket manufactured by SpaceX, one of the most innovative launch companies in the world. This Falcon rocket has numerous satellites on board. One of them is the Sherpa FX-1 called Sherpa Flex from Spaceflight, which has 13 satellites and 2 hosted payloads on board. One of these hosted payloads is the Heavenly Casket, a beautiful container specially designed by Beth Mikulka, our senior mechanical engineer here at Spaceflight. The Heavenly Casket holds several capsules firmly and safely in place during the rough ride to space. Once on orbit, it is open on the sides to expose the Celestis capsules to the crystal clear beauty of the stars and Earth from orbit. From this special vantage point, your loved ones will remain circling the Earth for several years until natural atmospheric drag results in the spectacular and fiery demise of Sherpa and Heavenly Casket into the Earth's atmosphere. Sherpa is designed to safely burn up to prevent any danger to those of us who remain behind. Once again, I want to thank you for choosing Spaceflight for your launch and orbital needs, and I wish your loved ones Godspeed on their next great adventure.
Before I go any farther, I want to say a few words to the family members and friends of those on board. Today we are honoring your loved ones, but we're also honoring you because you've overcome a lot and you've created something very special. In many cases, you know that's exactly what your loved one wanted. In other cases, you surmised or you're pretty sure that this is the ultimate way of celebrating their lives. But it took you to do this. So I want to say we're all proud of you. And of course, Celestis would not be here without you. And we're really excited this morning to have you as part of our honored guests. Speaking of honored guests, we have several joining us this morning. First up is a good friend of Celestis, astronaut, earthling, artist, Nicole Stott, who spent a considerable amount of time on the International Space Station, having the view that your loved ones will vicariously be sharing here in a little while. So welcome, Nicole. Good morning.
Thank you, Charlie. And it's really nice to be here. And I say that as a member of the Celestis family. It brings me joy to be here this morning with all of you for the launch of the Horizon Flight. And being here today takes me back to 2012, when my family and I were at Kennedy Space Center for the New Frontier mission, as we watched our daughter Eileen launch to space with what I'll call 300 crewmates on a mission to the stars, the loved ones of many other families like yours who were witnessing their journey to the stars. Today also gives me a chance to reflect on the opportunity that I had to fly in space myself. Certainly the awe and wonder of it all, but mostly I'm thinking about all of you. Because even when I was strapped into the seat of the space shuttle to launch to space myself, besides the work, of course, that I had at hand for launch and waiting anxiously for what it was going to feel like to get to space, I was always thinking about my family who were watching me make this journey. And so thankful for their support in making it happen. I'm pretty sure that that's what your loved ones are feeling right now, that way today, as you've blessed them with this opportunity to travel to the stars. So I'm very thankful to be here with you, to be here with these other wonderful people that you'll hear speaking with Charlie as we follow along with the launch of your loved ones on this Horizon Flight. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Nicole. It's now my privilege to introduce Christina Rasmussen. We met Christina earlier at the memorial service. Christina has spent her life studying about, analyzing, and assisting folks like you, folks who are on the life reentry path, working through grief, working to turn that grief into positive efforts and to not only overcome a loss, but to take solace from the celebrations and memorials that are associated with loss. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Christina Rasmussen.
Thank you so much for such a great introduction. And also thank you for inviting me to this extraordinary and profound experience. In the early years of my work, and about 4 years after my first husband passed away, I made this extraordinary discovery. I realized that healing can only take place if we walk alongside both grief and life, both joy and sadness. And today, what an extraordinary experience this is when we have so many incredible family members getting ready to witness this amazing farewell to space for their loved ones to experience a reentry back into the cosmos, and at the same time to experience your own reentry. You know, I named my work Life Reentry because when we experience devastating grief, we shut down moments of joy and we shut down feeling alive. But healing can never, ever take place when we say no, and we say no and reject joy. So today, it is an honor and a privilege to witness the most beautiful way to unite joy and grief. You will feel so much, and you will maybe even struggle to express what you're feeling. But what I'm going to ask you to do today is to really stay present in this moment. This experience, my friends, is going to last you forever. This is a timeless moment in your life post-loss. I always say grief takes place outside of time and space. And in many ways, this Falcon 9 rocket is also taking us outside of time and space with joy, with fulfillment, with euphoria even. All I'm going to ask you to do is to ground yourself in this moment. So just before we're about to launch, just before your loved one finds their way to the cosmos, if you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like laughing, laugh. Embrace both of those emotions. It is so critical to your healing ahead and so important to experience a dance between life and grief in this magnificent and beautiful way that Charlie has created in this world. When I met Charlie, I was blown away by not only his capacity to be a part of this company and journey for as long as he has, but his knowledge and his empathy about grief and the families that he has supported all those years. So it's an honor to walk by his side and be a part of this moment in time where you will create this memory that will last forever. I do wish we were together. I do wish we were all standing on that ground, holding hands. But whoever is by your side right now, grab their hand. If there's nobody there, hold on to a table, a chair, just ground yourself in this moment. It is so important. And I can't wait to witness your loved ones going to space and be here for you in this extraordinary dream come true. Thank you, Charlie. Back to you.
Thank you for those wonderful thoughts, Christina. And echoing those, everyone is aware that this morning is just the beginning of the journey, that assuming that there aren't delays and that we make it to orbit, your loved ones will be going overhead every 90 minutes for 4 to 7 years. And I've always found that when people tell me, oh, the family went out last night when Dad was going overhead and celebrated, I found that as fulfilling in many ways as seeing the drama of the liftoff. Of course, nothing can quite eclipse the moment of taking off and achieving orbit. But we have a long-term memorial for your loved one, which you can, as I think all of you know, track by coming to the website. And because we're in a polar orbit, the spacecraft will go over every point on planet Earth every 3 and 4 days. Don't ask me why it's that, but that's the revisit schedule. So that there'll be plenty of opportunities to have that feeling of nearness. Now I'd like to turn to another good friend of mine, Frank White. Frank is one of the deep thinkers about spaceflight and humanity and human culture, and has written several books, The Groundbreaking Overview Effect, The Cosma Hypothesis, and is a regular panelist and thought leader about this whole human space enterprise and what it means and how it affects everything that we do. So as always, it's a great pleasure to ask Frank to spend a few minutes with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Charlie. It's just a wonderful honor to be with you and the families and an incredible panel of my friends and colleagues. And I thought about 3 different aspects of the launch today that I'd like to share with you. First of all, as you know, the overview effect is actually an experience that astronauts like Nicole have reported when they see the Earth from space and in space, from orbit or from the moon. And that experience includes a sense of the unity and oneness of our planet and everything on it. And also a realization that no matter how different we are as human beings, we share that humanity above all else, and that transcends those differences. And you and I have talked about the fact that when you have a Celestis launch, very often the families who are present have an analogous experience, no matter how different they are or how far away they have come to the launch. When they watch their loved ones lift off, they feel a unity and oneness, a bond. And so it isn't really quite the same as seeing the Earth from a distance, but there is a feeling that is similar. And we don't know, for those of us who are watching virtually today, if that will happen, but we will find out. And I hope it does. I hope everyone does have that experience. The second thought, and you alluded to this, I believe this is just a foreshadowing of things to come, because it looks like human beings are going to be living off of planet Earth in the near future. And we believe that what people do on Earth, they will do in outer space, on the moon, on Mars, or elsewhere. So they will memorialize their loved ones. They will find ways to mark their passing, and it will be unique to them and yet common, I believe. And it occurred to me as I was thinking about this launch, I was imagining people who lived on Mars, and perhaps just as the families are honoring today a loved one who always wanted to go into outer space, maybe in the future, people living on another planet will want to honor a desire to have visited Earth, which perhaps they never achieved. And perhaps there will be a Celestis launch headed for planet Earth, the home planet. Finally, I have to say, as I watch the tribute videos, as people memorialize their family members, their friends, even their pets, what I felt was love, just an incredible outpouring of love. And it was very moving, and it is very moving to see that and to realize that a Celestis launch is an opportunity for people to express love in a unique and important way. There's an old song that says, "What the world needs now is love." I couldn't help but think of that today, because that's what our world needs now more than ever. And I think it's wonderful that a Celestis launch provides the opportunity for so many of us to feel that and to realize that it's really bringing out the best of us, the best of humanity. So again, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And like Christina, I just can't wait for the launch itself.
I just got an email from SpaceX saying that their launch webcast has begun. Are we able to bring that up at this point?
Falcon 9 is moving into the final stages of the countdown. The payload and vehicle remain healthy, and we're still currently tracking weather to be green for a T0 liftoff at 10 a.m. Eastern. In about 30 seconds, around the T-minus 2-minute mark, we should finish liquid oxygen loading, and that will wrap up the final propellant loading for Falcon 9. For those just joining us, this is the Transporter-1 mission for SpaceX, the third launch of 2021, and the first dedicated small-sat rideshare mission for SpaceX. And we just heard the call that LOX loading is completed. Again, that is the last of propellant loading for Falcon 9. And on screen, you can start to see some white clouds forming around Falcon 9. That is normal and expected for us at this stage in the countdown. That is liquid oxygen condensing as it meets the warmer ambient temperatures of the Florida air.
Falcon 9's in startup.
And the vehicle is in startup. Both stages are beginning to pressurize for launch. In a few seconds here, we should be hearing the launch director give the final go for liftoff.
LD on countdown 1, go for launch.
And there you heard it. That is the final go for launch at T-minus 35 seconds. All systems are go for the Transporter-1 mission. Let's listen and watch in as we lift off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Just past max Q. That is a really cool tracking shot of Falcon 9. All is looking good with the stage 1 trajectory. In about a minute, we have 3 events coming up in quick succession. First up is main engine cutoff. That's where the 9 engines on the first stage will shut off, followed by stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate from one another. Shortly after that, we'll have second engine start 1. The Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite its engine and continue its journey into orbit.
MVAC engine chill has begun.
We're about 20 seconds away from main engine cutoff, the start of those 3 events happening in rapid succession.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
Coming up in a few seconds, we should have the fairing deploy.
MVAC ignition.
Bearing separation confirmed.
And there you can see the 2 fairing halves have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 143 spacecraft to the vacuum of space. And as a reminder, our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today from the water. We're at T plus 3 minutes and 30 seconds into flight. We have a couple of views on screen right now. On the right-hand side is a view of the second stage, specifically the MVAC engine. It's currently in the first of its 2 MVAC burns. This burn should last for about another 5 minutes or so. And there's the entry burn. 3 of the 9 Merlin engines have relit. This burn is expected to last for about 30 seconds. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be attempting to recover the booster for a 5th time.
No parking orbit insertion.
On our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. The first stage has 1 more burn left, the landing burn, and it begins just before we touch down and provides the booster with a soft descent before we land. That should be starting up anytime now. And we did get confirmation of the second stage that it did reach a good parking orbit.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
LOS stage 2, Cape Canaveral expected.
And Falcon 9 returns safely once again. That is the 5th time for this particular booster and the 73rd recovery of an orbital class rocket. We're now going to coast for the next 45 minutes or so while we wait for SES-2, or second engine start number 2. We're going to leave you with an animation that shows you where we're at in the coast phase, and we'll see you back here at the T plus 54 minute mark.
You know, I knew about Al before I got involved with Apollo 13, the screenplay that he wrote with Bill Broyles, because I love Texas Monthly. And Al's writing there was, you know, was rich and remarkable. He's a great storyteller. When it came to Apollo 13, his knowledge was so deep, and his connection to the humanity of that story so rich and specific. Again, For All Mankind was an absolute work of genius. Al lit up every room that he walked into. He was completely unassuming, and yet there was this intelligence to go with a wit.
The Al I knew, and I didn't know him well, but I knew him intently, was a great journalist and a great storyteller. He was a very good collaborator and somebody that was a pleasure to participate in.
I hope that by becoming part of the universe, by realizing what our place is in the universe and learning about what our place is in the universe, we will become wiser, because we really need to become wiser. I mean, we're pretty smart, but we're not very wise. And understanding where we fit in the big picture is gonna help us get there. You can think about all the cool things we're gonna do in the future in outer space. I mean, we're like, one of these days, a lot of ordinary people like us are gonna get to go.
With his great interest and excitement about space, with all its possibilities and unknowns, it seemed appropriate to make it possible for him to go into space for his last earthly adventure. In closing, I would like to share one of Matt's favorite sayings. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. This is by Jimi Hendrix. On behalf of our beloved Matt, we as his family and dear friends send our love and appreciation to all peoples on this amazing planet that we share.
Hi, this is Laura Shepard Churchley. My father was Alan Shepard, one of the original 7 astronauts. And if it weren't for Al Miller, the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation wouldn't have any universities or any colleges, because he was the one that worked with the astronauts at the very beginning of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. He's the one that went out and got all the colleges and universities to work with the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. We will miss, and we do miss Al very much.
We can't remember him without a telescope. He knew the details of every plane and shuttle. Mark lived a life looking up at the skies and jumping at every opportunity to explore them. He summited Kilimanjaro, helicoptered over Kilauea, Victoria Falls, and Uluru, climbed Huayna Picchu, hiked Denali, skydove 3 times, explored the night skies of the pyramids in Egypt, and visited nearly 50 countries and countless national parks. He marched for science. He flew around the world in 8 days across 24 time zones and in a variety of aircraft. Mark would want us to mention that last part. It was important to him. Not only would Mark never turn down a trip, there's also no doubt space travel has always been in his future. Now we have a chance to make it so. Always looking up to you, Marco Polo. We love you.
So how can I not send this man to space, to orbit the Earth? I know Mark would love every single moment of it. He just will love it. He will be smiling and learning. I know that. I also know that our kids and I will look at the skies and know that he's up there smiling, just as we smile right back to him, because nothing is ever lost, everything transformed, as he taught us. Bon voyage, my love, until we see again.
We're back here at Celestis headquarters. Just a quick reminder as the deployments continue that the Horizon Flight capsules are located on the Sherpa FX-1 spacecraft.
For today's ride shares, there are 11 ports on our payload adapter responsible for sending 133 spacecraft plus our 10 Starlink satellites into orbit. Some of these ports will have multiple deployments. For these, over the countdown nets, we'll hear callouts for when the deployment sequence has begun and another callout for when the deployment sequence has completed. And from Port A4, Spaceflight Incorporated's Sherpa FX-1 spacecraft has deployed with its 13 spacecraft on board. From Port B2, the final small sats for EXO launch have now deployed, making for a total of 30 on today's mission.
Okay, well, Sherpa is deployed. We are free flying into orbit, where we expect to spend somewhere between 4 and 7 years, depending upon solar activity, atmospheric drag, etc. This will conclude our coverage of today's Horizon Flight mission. Once again, thanks to everyone involved, from SpaceX to Spaceflight to the Celestis team to Cosmic Perspective and their team. It's been a great day. We look forward to putting our tracking service in place, and thank you very much for trusting Celestis. And now we'll hear finally from Mary Liz Bender.
When you and I are ready, no longer earthly bound, we'll travel through the crystal night, starbound. Heaven holds a mystery wrapped inside a sound. Through the eyes of endless time, starbound, you and I. A floating star is what we are, suspended in space. Outward bound is the only home we've found to save the human race. Speed is now their captain. Kings that lost their crown. Motion is our master. Starbound. Starbound.
Matt Allen Adams. Love knows no bounds with true friendship.
Hello, I am Hope Sanford from Layton, Utah. My son, Matt Allen Adams, is one of the participants on the Horizon Flight. Matt passed August 13th, 2020. We as a family and his dearest friends came together and agreed that Matt should have the ultimate adventure of going into space and circle the Earth for as long as possible. Matt was adventurous and curious, so this experience fits his personality. Matt worked at Cape Canaveral for Thicol for many years. He was very interested in and a valuable contributor to the processes of the Space Shuttle program, which provided our astronauts with a vehicle to space. With his great interest and excitement about space, with all its possibilities and unknowns, it seemed appropriate to make it possible for him to go into space for his last earthly adventure. In closing, I would like to share one of Matt's favorite sayings. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. This is by Jimi Hendrix. On behalf of our beloved Matt, we as his family and dear friends, send our love and appreciation to all peoples on this amazing planet that we share.
Hector F. Albiceras. Superman is returning to the stars. Hector was born and raised in Guatemala. He always shared heartwarming and entertaining stories about his childhood and siblings. He was a proud man who was proud of his heritage. Guatemala and its memories remained in his heart forever. He then ventured to a new world full of endless possibilities. Chicago was where these new memories would ensue. Hector had a love for cars, music, movies, and sports. It was rare to not find him under the hood of a car, listening to a game or music while enjoying a nice cold beer. He was a simple man, but his humor and smile were infectious. All who crossed his path were welcomed by his sunny disposition and fell in love with him instantly. He was a man who was never too busy or unwilling to lend a hand to anyone who needed him. No challenge or obstacle in life deterred Hector. His compassion and generosity were cherished and beloved by those who held him dear. May our Superman rest in peace and take his place amongst the stars. David Benjamin Albright. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, did. A pioneering spirit who approached life and the world around him with a curious and inquisitive nature, David was a dedicated father and husband, a man who prioritized keeping others safe in both his home and his work. Adored by wife and family, his compassion and wit are dearly missed. Ove Germund Anderson. You have to be curious. OGA. Besides being a wonderful son, husband, father, grandfather, morfar, to two adorable girls, brother, in-law, uncle, and friend, he had so many additional interests in his life. He loved playing music as a bassist for his band for many years. Take bike rides, photography, talk politics, travel. He could fix anything, designing and building a beautiful kitchen for me. Loved his Tesla and SpaceX. Space was an interest that never dimmed for him. He read and watched everything about space. On our first date, we parked in front of my parents' house and talked for 2 hours about space. He pointed out to me what everything was up there. I imagine my mom was looking out the window ready to come down and twist his ear. I am sure she was thinking, what the heck are they doing for 2 hours in a tiny bug-eyed sprite? One of the things he dreamed of was space travel, and he told me many times that one day he wanted to go. After he passed, my daughter found on his phone that he was viewing Celestis Memorials, and we felt it was a sign of what he wanted. So, sweetheart, it is our honor to give you your wish. Soar, and we will all be watching. Ti amo. Dave Barrett. Poyekali, let's go.
Hi, my name is Joyce Barrett, and I'm paying tribute to my husband, Dave Barrett, who will be going on the Horizon Flight to orbit the Earth very soon. And I'm so thankful that Celestis is there, a company that can provide these kind of opportunities for us. I know my husband and I were sitting around one day at breakfast before he passed, and he said that he would love for some of his ashes to go into space. So I thought, well, that's great, and I know that I'll figure it out someday, and I'm so glad that I did. And I know that it's the best gift that I could ever give him. He loves space so much, and he will be thrilled to know that he's going up on a SpaceX rocket. And behind me is a picture that Alexei Leonov painted. He's a Russian astronaut, and my husband was a big fan of the Russian space program as our son was adopted from Russia. And when we went to Kaluga, Russia to adopt him, that's where the home of Tsiolkovsky, the father of the Russian space program. My husband was such an admirer. And I'm very happy. And I just wanted to say how much, he would love this. And he applied to be a journalist in space for the Journalist in Space program, as he was a journalist, and he did many space stories. And unfortunately, the Journalist in Space program didn't happen because of the Challenger disaster. But hopefully that he will be in space in a different way. And as a kid, I know he always wanted to be an astronaut. And that he wore glasses at the time, and that was not going to happen. But nowadays, I'm sure there's really no restrictions. But he was a broadcaster, and he did many space stories, and I am so thrilled, and my son Luke is so thrilled, and we are very happy, and we are looking forward to this, and looking forward to being there in person in the next launch as well. So Godspeed, Dave, and we love you, and have a good trip.
Dave Barrett. My big brother Dave loved astronauts, NASA, and various space programs. When growing up, he had a picture of John Glenn on his wall, and he read Jules Verne novels and popular mechanics and popular science. While in 6th grade, he built a life-size space capsule for the school science fair, and my mom made him a white astronaut suit to go with his helmet. As an adult and a reporter, he followed not only the U.S. achievements, yet he was also drawn to the Russian space program. Meeting and interviewing Yuri Gagarin, the very first man in space, was such a thrill for him. He also loved covering several space shuttle launches in Florida and was amazingly knowledgeable about this area of science. He also collected space memorabilia of all kinds. I remember asking him about a metal box that I thought was a piece of junk, just a metal thing with a bunch of wires coming out of it, and he said, "That's not junk, that went into outer space." So now I'm happy that Dave can live out his dream and go into space himself. I imagine the next time that I look up into the nighttime sky and see a shooting star, it'll be my awesome big brother winking at me.
Angel Beltran III. Vupu Venugopal Bharati. Though born into one of the most affluent and well-respected political families in India, she was quickly thrown into poverty at the tender age of 5 by a politically stimulated divorce between her parents, with her stepmother usurping all their ancestral property. However, she realized the virtue that true wealth lies not in pots of gold, but in the hearts of humans. Quickly realizing that a newly independent India recovering from 300 years of colonial oppression and poverty required guidance in the form of education, she left her ambitions aside and started teaching the children and youth of a young, developing nation. Her great sacrifices over the years bore fruit, with some of her students becoming world-class leaders, founders, and even Silicon Valley Bay Area CEOs, though she may have earned great recognition and love from everyone whom she taught. After enduring great tribulations and aggressively combating being paralyzed from head to toe from a brain ischemia for 6 long years, she finally left the planet Earth forever and passed away to the heavens on 18th of July, 2018 AD. Today, we bid farewell to this divine motherly angel, an embodiment of sacrifice and love, to her true home amongst the stars. Emilio M. Benzoni. Patty and Frank sending you to space with our love. Charles Eugene Bachman III. Creativity and love. Freedom. A father to 1 son, a grandfather to 2 boys, he served in Vietnam as an airman in the Air Force, always claiming that he mostly enjoyed himself there. He was also a hippie and a creative, possessing many notebooks of inventions and predictions, many ahead of their time. When asked what he would want done with his body after death, he unwittingly asked to be launched into space and spread across the earth. Donald Bond, the guiding star for his sons.
Go. So, this video is for Donald Bond, Memorial Horizon Flight, and we are the Bond boys, the great-grandsons, the grandsons, and the actual son of Mr. Donald Bond. And so we just want to say, Donald, we love you, and we hope you have a safe trip as you voyage into the cosmos, and your great-grandkids, they love you. Your son loves you. We miss you, and we miss seeing you in Amarillo. So, you know, so much love, my man, and And yeah, we look forward to seeing the rocket launch. You guys got anything to say?
No.
No. You guys remember dancing at Granddaddy Donald's house in Amarillo?
Yeah. I'm glad that I actually have a great granddad.
Yeah. And you got to meet him. Yep. What about you, Pops? You got anything to say?
Daddy, I love you, and he just missed out on missing Reese, his other grandson. That's pretty much it.
Yep. Rest in peace, my man. Later.
Joyce Cornett Bowden, summoned by the cosmos. Joyce insisted that some of her ashes be launched into space. Joyce was always fascinated by the cosmos and dreamed of having a skylight in her bedroom ceiling so she could look into the infinite and wonder. In 1973, she wrote, "Life Force of the Universe. I am an integral part of the life force of the universe. My senses travel through it as the sun and moon. My soul ebbs with it as the sea. It is good to be here now." Alan Michael Bychik, your new flight altitude record, flown with love.
My husband, Alan Michael Bychek, was born April 13th, 1952, and grew up in Clifton, New Jersey. He was always an adventurer. He ran cross country and lettered in marching band in high school. He was also a rock climber, a double black diamond skier, and a certified scuba diver. He loved the New York City club scene while he was an engineering student at RCA Institute and had many colorful stories about encounters with celebrities, including Rod Stewart and Mick Jagger. Al became an engineer in the field of extruded polymers beginning in New Jersey and transferring to Florida in the 80s. Many in his industry tell me there was no other field service engineer like him. He loved his work, especially getting broken down production lines running again. It was a bit like jumping on his white horse and riding to rescue his customers. Al's work and love of adventure took him around the globe. He loved to cruise. Before we met, sometimes after work on Friday, he'd call Carnival Cruise Line, and if they had an open cabin, he'd take off wherever they were going. When he took me on my first cruise, I was hooked for good. We sailed around the world on over 24 cruises, at least once a year for many years, including when our child was a mere 3 months old. Disney World annual pass holders most of our nearly 30 years together, we were such fanatics we often went up and back on a single day. The same was true for our love of spaceflight. We'd drive up to the Cape for shuttle launches or watch them on TV, then go outside our front door to see as much of the ascent as possible with our own eyes. We loved to watch the ISS fly over, especially when there was a shuttle dock, since it was a spectacular sight. While in London in 2015 for our child's high school graduation trip, we were able to see the ISS fly over from the floor-to-ceiling windows in our hotel suite, a sight none of us would ever forget. Al was one of the biggest Star Wars fans on the planet. He never missed the opening day of any Star Wars movie. And when Disney World opened Galaxy's Edge, we were among the annual pass holders who were allowed a private preview, and the three of us spent over 11 hours there taking it all in and loving it. About 20 years ago, while working in Alabama, Al and his coworkers decided to build a little Estes model rocket and launch it just for fun. No one who was there had any idea what they ignited that day. Model rocketry became Al's great passion hobby. He loved our local club. For several years, we made monthly trips west to the sod fields to join with other amateur rocketeers as he rose to the highest certification level. It was always a quest for the most perfect, highest altitude flight. Al and I each separately grew up wanting to be astronauts. It was great to see him be able to live out the fun of pursuing excellence as a model rocketeer. For this reason, it seems particularly perfect for him to be launched with Celestis on this mission. The tagline on Al's flight capsule is, "Your new flight altitude record, flown with love." Al was loved as a husband, father, son, brother, uncle, and friend. He had grit, tenacity, and a phenomenal work ethic.
When he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, his attitude was, let's fix this issue now so I can get back to work, to my rockets, to Disney World, and to having fun. Al met each new medical challenge that same way. With this launch, he will fly high and free and eventually return as a shooting star in the sky. The perfect tribute.
Dr. John Caldwell, you'll always be with us, Dad.
Even though it's been a sad time missing our father, there's also been some excitement brewing because now we're gearing up towards the launch of my father's remains into the Earth's orbit. My father lived for the stars. He found his passion for astronomy at the age of 10 and pursued this passion throughout his life. He was a professional astronomer for more than 50 years, and he worked on some pretty high-profile and cool projects, such as the Hubble Space Telescope and the Kepler Space Telescope. Countless nights, my father and I would walk outside, just staring up at the sky. He was always dazzled by the vastness of the space and the beauty and wonder of it all. He would always take special time to marvel at the moon. Most nights, I look up at the moon and I think of my father. I remember those walks with such love and fondness, looking up, gazing up at the skies, and remembering my excitement because he was so excited. On behalf of my family, we are thrilled to make my father's dream of going into space a reality. He would be absolutely delighted to go on this journey. This is the perfect final resting stop for him. And while he's up there orbiting the Earth, I know he will be looking at the Earth and on us with the same awe and wonder and excitement as he did when he was here looking up at the skies. Have a safe flight, Dad. We love you and we miss you.
Bruce Allen Campbell, soar peacefully, my love.
Okay, Bruce Allen Campbell. What can I say about Bruce? Bruce was an unusual person. He didn't particularly like people. He loved animals, and he loved space. Anything to do with the science and the stars and the space. Because like me, he grew up watching man walk on the moon. I think he was 8 at the time. I was 7. And he dreamt of what was beyond what we could see. And he had that vision that allowed him to see the whole universe as not just one little spot where we are, but this massive, ever-ending, infinite vicinity. The fact that he's going to go up on this flight and spend a few years up where it's going around the Earth is absolutely amazing. He always wanted to fly high, and he is going to fly high. Bruce, you were special. You didn't realize how many people loved you, but you were greatly loved, and you are greatly missed. Soar high, love. Take care.
Joseph Michael Cannon, H's classified.
Joseph Michael Cannon, born February 9, 1953, in Oakland, California, called home on January 3, 2020. Preceded in death by your parents, your grandson Austin, your beautiful daughter Alicia. You are the father of 3 children, and as your middle child, I could not be prouder to call you my dad. You worked long, hard hours at Ford Motor Company while attending night classes that led you to your career, where you spent more than half of your life at Lockheed Martin Missile Command in Sunnyvale, California. When we were kids, you brought home astronaut food. You brought home posters of rockets. You even brought home rocket barrier, fire barrier that we could light and it wouldn't burn. All this because we would simply ask you, Dad, what are you working on? And your answer was always the same. It's classified. Dad, you were kind, generous, honest, and the man anyone could come to if they needed anything. Your granddaughter, Krista, made this box. It summed up the simple life that you led. You always had your drinks in a red Solo cup. You always had a napkin, no matter what, in your pocket. You had a comb as many times as you screamed out, ow, it was poking you, in your pocket. Your belt you wore no matter how well your pants fit. You always had a back scratcher with you because you liked your back scratched. You collected coins that you passed down to your grandchildren. When you retired, I convinced you to move to Indiana so you could be with my family, my kids, your son, and his kids. Although that didn't last very long, we had one short year before you were called home. We spent it doing things that you loved, going to the casino and playing your slot machines and eating steak sandwiches. Dad, your journey here on Earth is done. There's no more better fitting place to send you off to than to space. Our hearts still hurt, but your memories live on. Go explore your passion for space. We won't ask any questions because we know the answer. It's classified.
Gino Saverio Carroccia, forever in our hearts. Gregory Scott Carley. Greg Carley spent more than 20 years exploring how people interact with products and experience the world around them. With a passion for design, technology, and innovation, Greg Carley became Vice President of Product Innovation at Hypergiant Industries and a managing partner of Hypergiant's Ventures Studio Group, which accelerates promising startups through investment, advisory, and human capital. Greg managed strategy, innovation, and design for several Hypergiant divisions, including Sensory Sciences, Galactic Systems, and Applied Urbanetics. The family would like to thank Ben Lamb and Hypergiant for making Greg's dreams of spaceflight possible. Linwood E. Carter, Dance with the Stars. I am so happy that with the help of Celestis, I could honor his desire. I am touched with this poem by an unknown author. Into the freedom of wind and sunshine, we let you go. Into the dance of the stars and planets, we let you go. Into the wind's breath and the hands of the star maker, we let you go. We love you. We miss you. We want you to be happy. Mr. John R. Cherry and Mrs. Mary K. Cherry. Every journey begins with a dream. In 1982, John Cherry, a Space Coast funeral director, and two other space enthusiasts, Jim Kuhn and Beaufort Franklin, dreamed of the idea of launching cremated remains into space. A very special name was needed for this new enterprise, and Mary Kay was given the task. With a dictionary in hand, she started with the A's, and when she found the word Celestis, she looked no further. Charlie Chafer and his team at Celestis turned this dream into a reality. It is with great appreciation that John and Mary are a part of this Celestis journey. Edmund Ray Dianon Comsty. See you, Space Cowboy. Douglas Allen Cornett, PhD, The Final Frontier.
Our loved one is Dr. Douglas Allen Cornett. Doug was my husband.
And my father.
We chose to send Doug into space because he would have loved it. From a young age, he was obsessed with rockets. The early science fiction shows like Star Wars and Star Trek hooked him as a kid. But it was the Cosmos series with Carl Sagan that inspired him to become a scientist. He got his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering because he was all about the planes and rockets and watching stuff blow up. He later earned his PhD in biomedical engineering and went on to work in the medical device industry. He was curious about everything with a relentless need to know, and he didn't stop until he had the answers or figured the problem out. You would think the person I'm describing was some boring, dry academic type. Nothing could be further from the truth. Doug's sense of humor and wit kept everyone around him smiling. Always the extrovert and life of the party. He would be in the middle of a delicate surgery and quoting Monty Python. While he attained much success academically and professionally, his greatest achievement was in the lives that he touched. He was a loving, kind, and patient husband, father, son, and brother. He mentored numerous people over the years, academically and professionally, as well as youth through the Boy Scouts. He had earned his Eagle, and he had mentored many, many scouts, including his own son, to their Eagle. I received countless letters and emails after he passed from people I didn't even know, telling me how much Doug had done for them and how much he would be missed. He was taken from us much too soon, but he packed a lot of life into his 54 years. We love you and we miss you. Enjoy the ride, honey.
Sidney Earl Costello, Jr. Sidney's passion was space. His remaining family, myself, my children and grandchildren, anyone that knew him, are so thrilled and excited that we can fulfill his longtime dream of going into space. Thank you so much for making it possible. Sean Curtis, Sean Bear. Sean's life was not easy, but he found his way and was very proud of it and himself. To his friends, he was Sean Bear. He found one of his purposes in his work as a stage and lighting technician, pirate, which he did up until the day before he died. And again, he found a world of lifelong friends, which included all of his childhood friends as well. Pirates forever. He took great pride in all he did, and it showed. Sean struggled with alcohol and depression in his younger years, but found sobriety in the last 3 years of his life, where his outlook changed. He found nature. Sean never did anything halfway. If he was interested in something, he went after it and learned all he could. To my dearest friends and my beloved family, I am writing you this letter today with my thoughts set on the future. What a strange and beautiful place the future is, full of so much hope and wonder, where we can be anyone and do anything we put our minds to, because anything is possible, and the only thing that is certain is uncertainty. I find my thoughts set on the future quite often these days. What adventures will there be? What fish will be caught? Where will my trails lead, and what beauty will I find on the other side of those mountains? And still, even with my head filled with so many curiosities and wonder and the thrill of heading towards the unknown, I always find my mind wandering back to the single inevitability that awaits all our futures. It is a sobering thought, and one that we all have sooner or later. How unfortunate it is to be cursed with the knowledge of our own mortality. Imagine the things we would do and the lives we would live if we had no knowledge or fear of death. It is for this reason that I so greatly admire nature. There is no time to worry about death or dying in nature. The animals do not care how delicate and fragile their existence is. They are not burdened with the fear of tomorrow. They do not worry about their future, and they have no regrets about their past. They are truly free. They truly live each and every moment to the fullest, and when they die, the other animals do not mourn, the trees do not cry, the rocks remain apathetic, and the flowers do not shed their petals. There is no time for the world to stop and ponder. That would be a waste of energy, and nature does not waste energy. No. As a matter of fact, nature immediately goes to work repurposing that energy. Everything is broken down and redistributed. Some goes to the plants and animals, some rises up into the air, some breaks down into the water, and the rest is absorbed by the earth. Everything is reused and nothing is wasted. That life is not wasted. It goes on. The energy from that life goes on to creating new energy for new life. Nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. It is simply redistributed. This is not something to be sad over. This is something beautiful. Life is beautiful, but life is only possible because of death and vice versa. So in turn, death must be beautiful too. My dearest friends and family, the people I love more than anything in this world, I am writing you this letter today with the knowledge that it will be read after my time has passed, and I do not want your memory of me to be one of sorrow. Too often people pass, and the only thing anyone knows how to feel is the feeling of loss. Please do not think of me as lost, for I have not gone anywhere. I am right here, just as I have always been and will always be. I am still here with you. I am still here with you, enjoying the warmth of the sun and peaceful calm of the night. I am still here walking the winding trails through the tall trees of the forests. I am still here pulling fish out of our deep blue lakes and crystal streams. I am still here enjoying every sunrise and sunset and feeling the rain and playing in the snow and feeling the wind rip through my hair. I am still here looking up at that big beautiful moon and all of the countless stars surrounding it. And any time you look at the world around you and you see something so beautiful that you can't help but feel your heart swell and your eyes water, I will be there with you too. My eyes glossy and my heart swelling with yours. I will always be here with you. You just have to look in the right places. The world is everything. We are all connected to it, and it is connected to all of us. Sean Curtis. Jack Dable, our Pathfinder baby. Philip Herman Dable. Michael Jason Doherty. The universe is now yours. Through the years, he had a few jobs ranging from being a security guard to handling computer tapes to working for the Department of Motor Vehicles and eventually the Department of Justice. His hobbies were also quite diverse. He enjoyed gaming with friends, shooting, writing, woodworking, and most recently running. Michael's interest in space most likely derived from his extensive reading, as well as shows like Doctor Who and the Star Wars movies he watched growing up. Michael left us shortly before reaching his 42nd birthday. Dearest Michael, it is with deep sadness we send you aloft to fulfill your final wish. May your energy continue to power the universe, and may you forever rest in peace. Samuel Patrick Drinkard. Fly high, baby boy. Fly high.
Patrick, when we talked about your end-of-life plans, a conversation none of us ever wanted to have, nobody was surprised when you said you wanted to be launched into space. You always did things your way, in your time, and stepped to the beat of that different drummer from the day you were born. We love you and we miss you every day, but we're so excited that you're going to get your final wish and that we will be able to track you and follow you. Though we know that your soul is in heaven, a little part of you will be orbiting the earth, and we can say hello every day. Your mama loves you. Fly high, baby boy.
Ira Cleveland Duke. Cleveland was born with a slight mental defect, which today would have probably been diagnosed with a disorder. He was a quiet boy who didn't want to be bothered with others. Cleveland also had physical defects, but even though Cleveland had all these difficulties to go through, Cleveland loved life. He loved history, but most of all, he loved space travel. He had all the models put together and hung around in his room. One of Cleveland's bucket list items was to go off to space. The closest he came was watching a rocket go up in space. Now, his life on this earth is over. Thanks to my niece, Tina Ogletree, and her husband, Tim, for coming up with this idea to have one of his bucket list items fulfilled. This is the only thing this family has coming agreed upon, making Cleveland's wish come true. David M. A. Gardner, on to Valhalla.
I want to live, however briefly, knowing that my life is finite. Mortality gives meaning to human life, Captain. Peace, love, friendship, these are precious because we know they cannot endure. Butterfly that lives forever. Is really not a butterfly at all.
John Edward Estes, my beloved, our wrinkle in time. Leaving this earthly plane too soon, his passing, age 60, was self-inflicted. There were no signs. If you or a loved one are struggling, please know that there is help out there. Contact the National Suicide Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, TALK. In celebration of John's life, how perfect, but with a spaceflight, returning as a shooting star. I know he would absolutely love this. Indica Noodle Fabiano, thank you for loving and caring for me.
I'm going to start off with Indica's haiku. I'm sorry if I get emotional. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. Indica was a very special girl. So much so that I wrote a haiku for her that I didn't even know was poetry until I put it on paper. And it's... My Princess Snarky is not a Yorkie, for thine is the noodly butt, which I love so much. I love thine Princess Snarky. So here's Indica's biography in a nutshell. She was born in the Bronx, in New York City, to a dog breeder that I had a strong suspicion was planning on fighting her. So I made sure that I scooped her up, and she lived with her loving family in West New York, at our family's home, in Miami Beach, and in Newark. She's with me every day here, and she'll never leave me. Indica was such a mother that we called her the mommy. She mothered a dove that got hurt and fell into her yard, an injured squirrel, a chipmunk, 2 cats, and of course, myself and her daughter, Oriana. She became service qualified after she was able to pick up on my muscle seizures before any other indicators that I would be able to notice. She was my early warning system, and I feel so vulnerable without her. Not only was she my rock, my anchor, my best friend, but she showed love to everyone, and she was that special. She even became the Groove Cruise mascot. And she meant a lot, not just to me, but to thousands of people. And I can never thank her enough for that. And I hope that I can cherish and honor her the way she deserves for the rest of my life. Because if it was not for her, I would not be the man that I am today. I don't know if I would be alive if it wasn't for her. So I will spend the rest of my life honoring her, loving her, and saying her name as much as possible because it makes me smile even though it hurts that she's gone. I love you, Indica. I've never stopped loving you and I never will. I know you'll be looking over me. Just know Daddy loves you and misses you so much. Thank you for being the best dog a man could ever ask for. I love you, baby girl.
Bob Gale Funk. Alexander Gleckman, always our forever star. In 2018, Alex joined the United States Air Force and graduated with honors. After completing his training in Mississippi, he was assigned to Shriver Air Force Base in Colorado Springs as a client systems technician under the 50th Space Communications Squadron, where he brought his expertise and his own sense of humor to his work and fellow squad members. He was excited to have his base be the first designated space base in the military. On July 14, 2019, Alex decided to end his life. Our lives are better for having him be a part of ours, as well as him letting us be a part of his. All the good memories of Alex will live on in our hearts and minds forever. Alex was a good person, and we will always be proud of the man he became. We miss you and love you always. If you know someone that is struggling or depressed, speak up. Make them get help. Talk to someone. He will always be our forever star. Neil B. Grissom, Into the Mystic, Semper Fi.
Hello, my name is Barbara Grissom. My husband Neil, the remains are on the Spaceflight, and I was going to give you a little information about him. He was born and raised in Covington, Kentucky, and enlisted in the Marine Corps directly out of high school. After basic training in San Diego and jungle warfare school in Okinawa, he was sent to Vietnam in 1963 as a member of the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion during Operation Shoe-Fly. His unit was supporting the CIA and the Green Berets, who were training the Vietnamese ARVN troops before the U.S. military action in that country was at its peak. Neil was discharged in 1965 from the Marine Corps after serving only 3 years due to the premature death of his father, as he was her sole means of support for his mother. Within a year of being discharged from the Marine Corps, Neil began a railroad career as dispatcher at the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway. He eventually retired as Senior Director of Labor Relations for CSX Transportation in Jacksonville, Florida, after 37 years of service. Neil and I met in 1971, and we married in 1972. We had our daughter Wesley in 1980 while living in the Richmond, Virginia area. We had a wonderful 47 years together, sharing our version of the American dream, as did most of our friends during the time of our marriage. After Neil's retirement from the railroad in 2003, he began pursuing more strenuously his hobbies of collecting antique rifles and refurbishing them, target shooting, and participating in several veteran organizations, particularly the 3rd Recon Battalion Association, where he served as treasurer for the Charlie Company for 12 years. Neil loved the warm climate of Florida. He loved dogs, and he loved music from the 50s and 60s, especially that of Van Morrison. He loved his hobbies. He loved watching boats sailing along the intercoastal waterway from Marlanai, and particularly stargazing at night. He often requested that when he died, he wanted to be among the stars and would like to be shot into space in a rocket. Our daughter Wesley and I are grateful for the opportunity to fulfill that wish. I believe our family and friends will remember Neil best for his sense of duty to his country and his family, and his keen wit. And soon he will be flying into the mystic, as his favorite artist Van Morrison stated in one of his songs.
Masako Haneda. Thomas Hanley, no longer tethered to Earth.
We all think our loved ones are special, and they are. Tommy was a little extra. He was born with some handicaps, severe scoliosis, kyphosis, and he was missing a hip socket. The doctors told my mom to take him home and love him. They didn't know how long he would live. He was very well loved, and he had a strong will and a strong spirit, and he lived an amazing 59 years. He went to Jesuit College Prep. He graduated from Texas Tech in communications, had a normal, crazy shenanigan high school and college life like any other kid. And then he had a very illustrious career at Raytheon as a graphical illustrator. He was very well respected, a 25-year-long career. He retired due to medical issues, some complications that led him to then be on a ventilator. He only had 2 limitations really in his life. He never considered himself disabled or handicapped. One limitation, he could not sit. He stood his entire life. He was either standing or sitting. That was it. He also could never be an astronaut, which was the one thing he would have loved more than anything else in this world. He was an avid space and aviation fan. Ever since he was a kid playing with his Matt Mason space station, he knew the specifications and details about every aircraft in the sky, and he was a huge supporter of the space program, following every mission. He funded Kickstarters. He was a strong supporter of SpaceX. He had my children write a haiku as part of the Mars Maven program. We now have a haiku on Mars somewhere. He was always trying to share that overwhelming knowledge of space and science with his family and friends. He would leave notes around the house, often to remind himself of things that he needed to share with my mom or me or whoever, such as this one. Going to announce confirmation of gravity waves predicted by Einstein, 9 a.m. So he would have had us watching that with him. He was always wanting to share his knowledge. He was a brainiac. I always told him when he died one day I was going to launch him into space, and I really didn't know how I was going to do that. So this is kind of fulfillment of that dream, if you will. The launch is really for us. We know Tommy's in heaven. We know he is free to fly about the cosmos. He is no longer tethered to this earth. He's having conversations with Albert Einstein. He knows the answer to every space question that he still had, and he's probably laughing at how naive we are that we don't know. The space launch is really for us. He would be so happy to be able to share his passion of space with his loved ones on a more personal level. So by having us involved in this and having his friends and family watch this and being connected personally would mean the world to him. He was one of a kind. He blessed everyone that came across him in a very unique way. And he is no longer tethered to this earth. We love you, Tommy.
I'm here to commemorate my best friend Tommy Hanley, Thomas Wayne Hanley, a person who moved in one day next door to me when I was a kid, 6 or 7 years old, and was my neighbor for 50 plus years. We stayed in touch, we did everything together, and we had this most incredible love for the space program. I can't think of a better way to send my buddy Tommy off and just see the joy of the people who all around him were affected by his love of the space program, get to see that this is the most perfect and fitting send-off I could think of for this beautiful human being that I was very fortunate enough to know for 50 years. God bless. I love you, Tommy. I hope this is the best thing that ever happened.
Roger Brian Hayes, Into the Mystic, My Love.
This is a message from some of Roger's friends and family.
Roger, the McDonald family will always miss you, and you will be forever in our hearts.
It's a message from some of the Butel kids.
Bye, Roger. I hope you have a good time in space, and I will always miss you.
Goodbye, Roger. We all miss you.
See you, Roger. Have a safe trip. We all miss you, and yeah, have a safe one. Bye-bye.
Bye, Roger. Have fun in space. I'll always miss you.
Hey, Roger. Have a safe trip. We all miss you. Love you. Bye.
Roger, we're all going to miss you and still miss you, and we're going to miss you forever. And you were a big part of our lives and growing up and seeing my kids grow up. And from our family and from all of your friends who could post and who couldn't post, we'd like to say bon voyage and off to your final frontier. Bye.
My name is Cheryl Hayes, and I want to tell you about my amazing husband, Roger. Space dreams came early for Roger. His dad was a career Air Force flight engineer. One of Roger's favorite childhood memories was when his dad would wake up before the break of dawn so the two of them could watch the latest space launch live on TV. Roger always wanted to fly, but unlike his dad, Roger had Coke bottle glasses by grade school, and his flight dreams were not to be. But Roger never lost interest in space and became a huge fan of space-age technologies and all things science fiction. While in college, he turned to more earthly pursuits and became a biologist and teacher. Among his many passions, he loved plants and animals, and he especially enjoyed the planet's many natural wonders. We would spend our vacations exploring the world and having as many adventures as we could in the 35 years that we had together. Roger was smart, fun, friendly, outgoing, hardworking, and hard-playing. He lived life like a kid in a candy store. Each day brought new possibilities and new things to be excited about. When he found out several years ago that his ashes could be shot into space, that was yet another source of excitement for him. He had never lost sight of that dream to explore outer space. It's my honor to be able to grant him that final wish. and to know that Roger has, at last, taken flight and he is truly with the stars. Love you, Roger.
William Hayes.
Hi, Dad. We lost you on June 15, 2019. We want to tell you how proud we are of you and how you fought to be with us all the time. We know that you wanted to explore outer space.
I know this is a tribute video, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my dad. He was an aerospace engineer who worked on the Apollo missions and later on at Ford Aerospace in Laurel. His final wish was for my sister and I to take his ashes to the highest point and throw them into the wind so that he could finally go to space. This is our way of doing that.
We love you, Dad.
James Larry Heath. Ciao. Always have fun. Lucky Larry. Larry worked much of his life as a college professor at San Diego State, Oregon State, and Indiana State University, achieving full professorship at age 33. Larry retired in 2006. Larry was a world-renowned expert in robotics and loved all things robotics. He even had his own robot named Fred. He is the author of multiple books and other publications on electronics and robotics. He presented in Japan and around the world on this topic. He had a passion for outer space and attended the first launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia in 1981. Larry loved to travel for both work and pleasure, and whenever possible included his wife Martha on the trips. Both Larry and Martha have been around the world several times and visited more than 20 countries. Larry's nickname for himself was Lucky Larry, and his motto was, have fun. He embodied both of those in the way he lived his life. Mary Margaret Heiss. Lenora Yvonne Hill Smith. Joanne Holder. Mellow out, Toots. Her passions in life included the space program, photography, and Purdue sports. She witnessed more than 24 launches from Kennedy Space Center, including 13 space shuttle launches. Her sunrise and ocean beach photography was recognized in several photo competitions, and she was a die-hard Boilermaker fan. She had a way of enjoying life that extended into her 80s, when she purchased a silver Mustang convertible and cruised it around Florida and over to the Kennedy Space Center, where she became known to all the guides and visitor center personnel. Her desire to reach the stars was something she began talking about in the shuttle era, and we assured her that she would get that wish. We are grateful to Celestis for making it possible.
So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my mom today and why she's on the Horizon Flight. But to do that, I have to start with myself. And so to tell you a little bit about me, I've been in the business launching rockets and satellites for over 30 some years now. And it goes back to my mom when I was a baby, starting me out, putting me in front of the television set and having me watch those early launches in the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo era. And she was so passionate about the space program, even back in those days. And it just instilled in me a love and a passion, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so throughout her life and in my life, as I came to grow up and know her and went to college and became a person involved as an engineer in the space program, we shared that love and that passion for all things space. And she had a great habit of telling me about things that were going on, sometimes even before I heard about it, because she had a condo with my stepdad down in Titusville, and they could watch what was going on over at the Kennedy Space Center. And she would go there and meet the astronauts, and sometimes I would come with some other friends of mine and go watch launches, and we had some astronaut friends there, and she would get together with us. So she had quite a collection of astronauts that she knew over the years. She ended up seeing more shuttle launches than I think anyone else in my family ever did. So she was really something, and we miss her dearly, but I'm so happy today to see her getting the chance to fulfill this dream. So thank you very much. And Go Horizon, go Celestis, go SpaceX.
Michael George Hunt, fulfilling a dream and your last wish. Love, family.
春一伊原宇宙旅行楽しんで。
春一伊原父は生前海外旅行が趣味でした。しかし当初は飛行機嫌いで海外旅行などとんでもなかったです。私が大学2年生の時、姉が社会人になったら家族みんなでの旅行ができなくなるということで、家族4人でヨーロッパ旅行がきっかけで、以来年数回は出かけるほどの海外旅行好きになりました。昔は今のようにデジカメではなくフィルムカメラで、帰ってきたら何本ものフィルムを現像してアルバムに整理するのが楽しみ。何十冊もの思い出の品となっています。葬儀に使う写真を探すにあたってアルバムを見ると、旅行中は普段にはない笑みのある表情でした。普段は病院の運営にあたり、診療経営で大変な重責だったのであろうと改めて痛切に思いました。今はその重責から解き放たれ、好きだった旅行、今度は宇宙旅行をゆっくりと楽しんでください。
稽古痛い。光って空見て手を振るよ。
稽古遺い。僕には宝物の4枚の写真がある。58年前、新婚旅行で訪れたのは和歌山県那智の滝。少し恥ずかしがりながらも幸せな白黒の写真。あなたが大切に撮っておいたのは薄茶色に変色した1枚の新聞。そこにはアポロ11号が月面着陸に成功し、人類が初めてその地に足跡を残した写真が大きく載っている。私も宇宙に行きたい。その日からあなたはその写真を眺めては宇宙に思いを馳せていた。もうすぐ宇宙旅行とロボットの時代が来るんだと、近未来を想像しては楽しみにしていたよね。金婚式には宇宙旅行に連れて行ってあげたいな。宇宙旅行に連れて行ってあげるにはほんの少し時間が足りなかった僕らは、金婚式を迎え再び思い出の地を訪れた。年月を重ねてもあの時と変わらず流れ落ちるその滝の前で記念写真には娘が増えカラーになっていた。互いに支え合い慈しみ合った僕らの旅行最後の記念写真はちょっとシャイな2人のラブフォト。太陽のように強く温かく家族を見守り愛してくれた恵子。今はただ感謝とありがとう、ありがとうの言葉しかありません。そしてあなたの思いが今叶えられて僕は幸せです。5枚目の宝物になる宇宙からの写真、楽しみに待っています。最後に恵子の人生に彩りを添えてくださいました友人をはじめ、すべての皆様にも心から感謝と御礼を申し上げます。夫、遺体光一。夢かない君は宇宙の星となり。友人のりちゃん。あなたが飛び立ったら毎日探します。そして空から私を見守っていてね。言葉には言い尽くせないほどの楽しい時間をありがとう。友人のぶえちゃん。これからは広々とした天空で大いに楽しんでください。日本の上空に来たら手を振りますよ。実弟ちゃこちゃん。お母さんから最後にもう一人でも大丈夫だねとやっと及第点をもらった。ほら大丈夫だったでしょと得意げに伝えていくよ。See you whenever。娘みどりちゃん。
Stanley Wayne Jones, a bright shooting star.
Wayne, years ago you had told me that if you had life to do all over again, you would have been an astronaut and gone to space. And I told you then that if there was ever an opportunity that I would send you if I could. And now the opportunity has occurred. Know that we all love you and miss you. You are a very important member in our family. And we hope that you enjoy this adventure.
Matthew Kaplan. Mitsuo Katsuragawa. Catch on, Father, please watch us from the sky. Ronald J. Lang, Sr., Results-Driven Leader.
Today is a very special day for my family and I. My dad would say, I finally got my e-ticket to space. You gotta enjoy the ride, Mal. You gotta enjoy the ride. He will be joining my brother, Ronald John Lang Jr., also known as Ron John, who was on a previous flight on the Dragon Frontier flight in 2012. Our family and I are so blessed his wishes for spaceflight will come true today. My dad has worked on everything from spray painting cars and aircrafts. He has an extensive career in the aerospace industry. He also worked on several Apollo missions, including the Apollo 11 mission in Cape Canaveral, Florida, the shuttle program in California, and went on to achieve several other aerospace accomplishments. The best thing of all is he was such a fun person to be around. He could light up a room, have you rolling in his jokes in no time. He knew how to live. He loved the mountains, the ocean. He enjoyed going places, seeing things, and celebrations. He made sure you celebrated each and every family member, everybody's accomplishments. He loved all of his family, each and every one of us. He was a wonderful man, a great father, a wonderful grandpa to all his grandchildren. He is missed dearly by all of us. We are so blessed to have had such a bright soul in our lives. May you enjoy the ride, Dad, and may the force be with us all. God bless. Love your daughter and family.
I'd like to start off by saying that Ron was the love of my life. He was my soulmate. He was my partner in crime. He was my fun. He was also my biggest cheerleader. He always made me feel special. He was so much fun to be with. He was so much fun to travel with. He was a good dad, and he was a good stepdad. He was so dedicated to the space program. He loved it from the early days until his last days. Our family is so glad that he gets to go on this, his last flight. We miss him and love him dearly.
I know Ron was excited to share this with us, and he wanted all of us to get together to see him off. Godspeed, Ron. We love you.
Stephen Shane Law, forever looking over us.
This tribute video is for Stephen Law.
Hi, my name is Jack Law. I'm the son of Stephen Law, who's going to be on the flight today. My father was an extremely childlike person. He was extremely goofy and he enjoyed science. He's been into science for like a few years now, so this is going to be a perfect send-off for him. He would be extremely happy that we chose this option for him to as a last goodbye. Thank you.
My dad was not really one of my best friends, but he was really the greatest son that no one could wish for. We both shared the love of doing something productive, like building or photography. He was the one that taught me majority of my skills. He was so intelligent, and I just wish that I could pass that on. The things that he knew and came up with was just so smart, and I wish that he could have shared everything with me before leaving. I think everyone's going to miss his goofiness, obviously. I think that's one of his best traits that made him his little childish ways.
My brother Steve was truly one of the best. I can't believe he's gone. He was such a loving, caring, happy, humble man. He was like a father to my kids. He was a creative soul. He loved making movies and documentaries, and he had 100 DIY projects going on at the same time. He loved new fun adventures and had many adventures planned. Unfortunately, COVID lockdown isolated Steve and made him lonely. But if he was with us now, he would be so happy, beaming with excitement at this fun adventure. To first have travelled from Australia to Texas, to be a passenger on a commercial rocket, to be launched into space and to orbit the Earth, he would be ecstatic. Thank you so much for Stephen's last awesome adventure. As Steve would say, go Hawks. Love you forever, Steve.
Going into space would have so been Steve's thing. If we had told him this was going to happen, he would say, "That's awesome, let's do this." come on, let's go. And he'd grab his Sony camera and he would try to capture the whole thing. I seriously couldn't think of a better send-off for him. So on behalf of the filming community, Steve, fly high. We miss you, but you're definitely never forgotten.
James W. Lynch. Bruce Spike McPhee, thanks for the experience. Jeffrey Neil Mayman, your dream trip to space. Jeff loved his family, animals, especially dogs and wolves, and space. His greatest joy in life was spending time with his family. Perhaps they are not the stars, but rather the opening in heaven where the love of our lost ones pours through and shines down upon us to let us know they are happy. Eskimo proverb. Andrew William Manius.
Hi, everybody. We're the Manius family. I'm Bill Manius. It's my wife, Gretchen, and my son, Hayden. And we're here to chat with you a little bit about our son, Andrew, who we lost tragically about a year ago, who's about to take this exciting mission, the Celestis mission. So we're very excited about that. Our son, Andrew, was always insatiably curious about anything in general, particularly obsessed with anything associated with astronomy, space travel, and the NASA missions. Over the past few years, he was especially excited about the increasing opportunities that private companies were seeing through initiatives and research and innovations being developed through space travel, companies like SpaceX. We knew Andrew was special and he had a deeper way of thinking about things, even when he was a kid. I mean, when he was 4 years old, he asked us, you know, when we were on our way to school one day, what was at the bottom of space. Pretty deep for a 4-year-old. We live in Houston, so we spent many weekends at Johnson Space Center, or as Andrew referred to it, his space camp. Gretchen?
Andrew was a student at Rice University, and while he was, one of his favorite courses there was an astronomy course. He was thrilled about it because he got to go into the Rice's observatory on a nightly basis and research and look at the stars. And he was so excited every time he came home to share with us his gratitude about having access to such incredible resources. Andrew was always anxious to share his enthusiasm and to teach us about new discoveries being made in space, especially by people such as his idol, Dr. Mike Brown, whom he got to meet and visit with for several hours during a college visit to Caltech.
When we learned about this opportunity and what we could potentially do for Andrew, we definitely thought it was the best move and something he would really enjoy. We were trying to figure out the best way to honor him, and we figured this is definitely the right way. You know, he wasn't able to live out his dreams and goals as unfortunately as that is, but we wanted to at least help him do something that we know he'd really enjoy. I know right as I saw this as an option when we were reeling in grief and figuring out what we were going to do, I knew it was the right move, and we all agreed immediately. Though he's not with us, you know, we're comforted knowing that my brother and their sweet son is doing well in heaven, and he's going to be in the space orbiting the moon, as so did all of his heroes and many of the astronauts he worshipped. We miss Andrew so much, and we've truly lost the light in our lives, and it's not the same, but we know he's in heaven, and we're looking up to him and hoping he's happy.
We love you, Andrew.
We love you,
Safe
Andrew.
travels, Andrew.
Safe travels.
Timothy John McCarthy, infinitely fabulous and beyond fierce. Richard Ross McCormick, my restless spirit flies.
Hello, Richard, we love you. Just a few words before you venture into space. Rickadoo, Sandy, Richard, Rich. I'm sure that on the whole you'd rather be in Philadelphia, but by rising to this occasion, you'll keep us looking up to the big brother we love. As ever, it will be a blast having you around. From Amy. Richard, your love of science and space defined who you were as a person. We know if life were fair, you would have found your way into space on your own. It brings us all joy to think of you making this final journey to where you've always belonged. From Corky. Dear Sandy, I love the idea of you in space, especially knowing that you are up there watching over us. Love, Chris. Boldly go and enjoy your adventure, Rich. Perhaps you'll find the spirit of Professor B along the way. From Alyssa. I know how much of a fan you were of cliches and puns, so here's one from me to you, Richard. To infinity and beyond. Enjoy your travels. Love, Lisa. We all wish you a rest in peace.
Josephine Mcgee. We love you, Josie. At age 18, Josie survived lupus nephritis, then a fatal disease, by entering a clinical trial at the Rockefeller Institute testing the use of steroids to control lupus. Despite a lifelong effort to manage her illness, Josie thrived. A frequent international traveler and person of many intellectual interests and numerous friends. She was an account executive in pharmaceutical advertising in an era when few women attained such positions. Her zest for life and sense of adventure made her a favorite in her large extended family, especially her nieces and nephews. She adored living in Manhattan and was a longtime volunteer at the American Museum of Natural History. Astronomy and space exploration were among her passions. Among the many countries she visited, Spain was her great favorite. Relatively late in life, she walked the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage, a cherished achievement. Going to space was another. Bon voyage, Aunt Josie. Quinn McGillis. Don't be afraid, just believe.
Quinn is my husband and the father of our 3 boys. Early in our marriage, we had discussed end-of-life plans due to his autoimmune disorder that we knew could cause some complications. In that conversation, Quinn said he wanted to be rocketed out into space, which at the time I just giggled because I'd never heard of such a thing. But unfortunately, early in his life, I had to make those decisions. And when it came time, I did some research and found Celestis, which Quinn never was into astronomy. That wasn't his career path. And so it kind of made me dig deep of why he would want to be rocketed out into space. And it kind of does bring me some joy that maybe this gives him some freedom of pain. He's free from fear and free from worry. And Celestis has given us the opportunity to grant that for him, to be free. And we are looking forward to giving him what he's always wanted.
John Joseph McGinnis. To infinity and beyond. John was an avid Star Trek fan and always talked and dreamed about going into space or living on another planet. He loved looking up at the dark Arizona sky and studying the stars. John was the kindest, most honest man I have ever known. A piece of our hearts will forever be missing. Thanks to the Celestis program, John will complete his dream of making it into space. Ralph Alexander Meisel. Ground control to Major Ralph. Now you're actually taking off. Not so long ago, before we actually had to worry about the implementation of your last will, we talked about this crazy dream. To slide through interstellar space in a tiny capsule for all eternity after death. You had all sorts of crazy ideas in your life, but we like the idea of you in a tin can in the infinite space, by far the best. A scenario that only a stargazer can spin. The diverse interests, whether politics, art, economy, modern technology, or nature, gave you the balance for your happy life. So all of your friends knew you as a person to discuss so much with. A person whose qualities, norms, and values, if you compare it with an amplitude swing, could range from being highly sensitive, emotionally intelligent, and looking at the world with an alert mind, to consistently uncompromising, yes, radical. From realistic to limitless imagination. A scenario with which we were suddenly confronted again in spring 2020 under completely different circumstances, which we had to talk about again, and which was now much more real and closer than when we had classified it as science fiction a la Meisel. you actually got into that space flight. More than just a comic book. And you were serious even then. Now you were living this dream after your life, drawing your circle somewhere up there forever, putting on your mischievous grin and keeping one eye on us. You are missed. We are very pleased that we can fulfill this wish for you, that we will soon know you in an orbit around us. Nicholas Kieran Minaj, one with the universe now. Harvey Alfred Miller. Failure is not an option.
Hi, I'm Caroline Schumacher, President and CEO of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. On behalf of everyone, scholars, board of directors, astronauts, and staff at ASF, we love and miss Al Miller dearly. We want to thank Al for his diligent work on structuring the scholarship program that continues to thrive and grow today. We are so proud of our scholars. We send them off into society. They're contributing to the STEM industries and academia, and so much of what we do is because of Al. You will be missed. We love you, and we are thinking of his entire family at this time. And please know that we will continue to make you proud, and you have a lasting legacy here at ASF.
It was such an honor to get to know Dr. Al Miller. He was truly an inspiration, a man who was so humble and yet so kind and charismatic. He was an amazing asset to the astronaut scholars and to me personally as both an encouragement in all that I did. and he always helped you strive to be the best person you could be.
Al, my stepdad and my dear friend, I will miss you always. You will be with me every moment of every day, and I can't wait to meet up with you in the great beyond. Love you.
Papa, I miss you and I love you, and I love taking naps with you while you're napping, so have fun in outer space.
I miss you, Papa, very much. I miss making the oyster stuffing with you, even though I hated smushing the oysters. I really miss you and love you. Merry Christmas. Papa, I miss you so much. I wish you were here to hang out with Christmas with us, and I love you and miss you.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I just want to say that I really miss you, Papa, and I love you so much, and I really hope you have a fun time in space.
Hey Al, I always enjoyed the many different conversations we used to have, whether about sports, science, or one of your many different life experiences and accomplishments. I will forever miss having you around.
Hi Dad. I want to thank you for everything you've done for me and my family over the years. Your inspiration, love, guidance, and care has made me the man I am today. We love you and miss you and can't wait to see you again.
Maria Blasilda Miranda, live long and prosper. Sherwood Modestino, sail on, lovely lady.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Modestino. My mother, Sherry Modestino, wanted to be an astronaut and dreamed of going into space. She worked at the MIT Manned Vehicle Lab from 1970s to the 1990s. She worked with astronauts in the space shuttle to determine the cause of motion sickness as it related to the inner ear. This was an interesting and very gratifying project for her, as she got to fly on the what's known as the Vomit Comet, a zero gravity plane, which they had run several experiments that later went up in the space shuttle. And she, for many years, her, my father, and other family members would watch the space shuttle launches from Cocoa Beach at the Kennedy Space Center. This is a very fitting tribute to her last wishes to go into space. And Thank you very much.
Robert J. Moyer, Jr., To Infinity and Beyond.
I'll be reading something that my mother wrote that she's asked to be the video about. A shooting star has burned out too soon, and Bob was called home to heaven. Heaven has received an unstoppable man with a beautiful smile and warm hugs. Just as stars light the sky, Bob lit up the world with his unique sense of humor and his laughter. As a family, a huge hole has been made that can never be filled by another. We might not understand why you left this earth so soon, or why you left before we were ready to say goodbye. We will remember that you lived your life and gave us memories too beautiful to forget. Bob had a great love for travel. If he had his way, he would have been bound for some far destination every day. With his camera in hand, he traveled, taking pictures and adding memories along the way. We always said he documented our lives in pictures. His fascination with far-off places and new adventures was endless. One place he always was fascinated with was the stars and the vastness of space. He was in awe of it all. We went stargazing every place we traveled. He would have to set off to find the darkest and best place to see the stars, no matter where we were. On one trip to the Bryce Canyon in Utah, we had to drag all the pillows and blankets off the hotel bed, and we climbed the rocks to the perfect place. We lay under the stars, and he showed me all the constellations. He constantly spoke about how many light years it took for stars to reach us. He was just so in awe. And so my final gift to him is to send him where no travel agent could ever get him tickets to. So with our love and our blessing, we sent him on his final journey into the stars that he so longed to see up close. And as a family, we will always look at the sky now and see Bob and all of his amazing gifts and memories that he's left behind. And when we want to talk to him, we don't have to go any further than stepping outside the door.
William B. Murphy, Jr., It's a Wonderful Life.
Hello, I am Kathleen, sister of William Burnham Murphy, Jr., who will be taking his final journey on this flight to space, something that my brother, who I call Billy, would be totally excited about. Before I can say what my brother means to me, I need to put into words, write them down, say them to the world verbally, what I feel made him so special. Billy was born premature, overcame almost being burned from a homemade incubator, and this was just his first challenge. Because he was born while my father was in the Navy, they moved when he was 10 months old for a very short time in New York, then Virginia, where our father was then selected to leave and report to duty on an LST. My brother was only 1 by then, and he and my mom had to get back to California by themselves. Another year went by until my father had a 3-week leave. Then he was gone again until Billy was 2.5, when my father was out of the Navy. We lived in the Bay Area until Billy was 5, then moved to New York since my father took a job with the Arabian American Oil Company, which was based in New York. So this began some new challenges for Billy. He started school in New York. However, less than 5 years later, my father's company headquarters was moved to Saudi Arabia, and that is where we were headed. My father went 6 months before us, so the rest of the family went back to California to stay with relatives until we could join our father. Billy had to start a new school year in California, then finish that school year in Saudi Arabia. Very hard for a 10-year-old. In Saudi Arabia, the schools went up to 9th grade. So after 4 years in Saudi Arabia, then at the age of 16, he had to leave our family to complete his high school years elsewhere. Imagine being on your own basically at the age of 16. Turns out to never live with his immediate family again. Billy went to Beirut, Lebanon, where during his first year had terrible riots. This meant he had to move high schools to finish his last 2 years. The family chose Switzerland. After Switzerland, he was admitted to Stanford. Through all of the years without seeing his dad, making many school changes, meeting new friends and new cultures, Billy accepted all of these with an open mind and an open heart. He graduated from Stanford, got married, and had 2 children. During this time, he had more personal challenges, but I cannot tell you how proud I was of him to overcome these particular challenges and come out an even better man. My brother's challenges is what made him the unique human being that he was. I used to call him my perfect brother. He was incredibly smart, always getting A's, but never boasted. He was always kind to me. None of this brotherly, sisterly fighting. I thought he could do nothing wrong. Always looked up to him. All I wanted for him to be happy. When I visited him, he and I would stay up late to watch TV together. What did we watch? Science fiction movies, always. I will always think of Billy with a smile, and for years to come, I will look up into the sky and know that you, my brother, are orbiting the world. I am so happy for this journey. May you rest in peace. I love you.
I'm going to talk about my grandpa. So I have a lot of memories about him, and I am extremely lucky to have so many. But one of my most recent memories was when he came over with Mimi to our house for Easter. So they got to experience that really cool tradition of, the Easter egg hunt. Or I guess it wasn't really a hunt that year. That year we got like giant pinata-like things. It was really cool. And I mean, like, he was amazing. Like, he was extremely smart and always had such good ideas. I mean, yeah, it was awesome that I got to meet him and be with him.
So one of the fondest memories I have with Grandpa is we were in his apartment and he had like this helicopter and we were flying it around, and eventually Grandpa flew it too high and it hit the ceiling and kept falling. We tried it again, and once he flew too high, it hit the ceiling. And Mimi came out, was like, "What are you doing?" And we were just like, "We're crashing a helicopter." That was like one of the fondest memories I have with him, and I really miss him. Miss you, Grandpa.
He made me feel like family.
Damon Paul Nelson, fulfilling your spaceflight dream.
Damon's inquisitive mind guided his life. It was tempered by integrity and spiced by a wit that made it fun to accompany him along the way. From Tulare High School in California to the College of the Sequoias to the U.S. Air Force, he chased life with fervor.
Damon was especially proud to become an Eagle Scout. I remember 30 years ago when he snagged a photo of the space shuttle that was hung over my office desk. That picture still hangs in their home today. That photo may have been the spark that ignited his fascination in astronomy.
He loved his job as an Air Force tanker boom operator and the people he served with. He proved that when he left the Air Force and married his crew member, Dana, the love of his life. His Air Medal and other decorations were proof he did his job well. Degrees in political science and international relations came in handy when Damon joined the staff of British Parliament member Malcolm Moss while Dana was stationed in England. There, Damon tasted politics and liked it. His political thirst took him to Capitol Hill, where he relished his jobs operating behind the scenes. Politico magazine put him on their list of power players inside the Beltway. Damon's passion to help others was evident too, helping interns find jobs in D.C. A throng of congressional staffers had careers launched by a phone call or recommendation from Damon. He worked his way up to become staff director of the House Intelligence Committee. His work there still pops up in ongoing investigations.
It's the largest living thing on Earth.
Damon loved watching the stars, studying the galaxies, and said no matter the cost, he wanted to be one of the first civilians to make a commercial trip into space. But his work here on Earth did not go unnoticed. He was posthumously awarded the second highest medal given to those in the U.S. intelligence community. Congress named the 2019 intelligence authorization bills after him. The House Intelligence Committee meeting room in the Capitol building was given his name. He would be especially proud that a scholarship fund was created in his honor to help graduates of his high school attend his alma mater. Damon's adventures took him all over the world. He and Dana planned to visit every continent and almost did it. Whether in Australia or at home, they visited observatories and planetariums to look at the heavens. Damon beamed when Dana smiled, as she did enjoying his birthday present, a chance to drive a race car on the track at Talladega. He scuba dived, looking at the beautiful underwater world, but his lust to expand his knowledge about things like space rovers and interplanetary exploration was never satisfied. So Damon is likely grinning now as he travels to the place that fascinated him.
Well, Damon, you're going to space. That's right. You're being put on a rocket ship sent thousands of miles above the Earth's surface into orbit. I can't think of a better or more fitting tribute to someone who's had a lifelong interest in space as you have. Frankly, I wish you weren't going. That means you'd be here with us. It means we could have a drink together or share a dumb joke or even talk politics. But that said, I want to let you know that we did look at other interests to see if there was a better tribute for you. For instance, there was the early 90s mini truck phase. Tricked out lowered truck, you brought to competitions. You did pretty well. As your older brother, it was my job to support your interests even if I didn't understand them. But I think we can all agree that that phase passing was a good thing. Then there was your lifelong passion for Taco Bell. I gotta tell you, I have it too. You know, I remember in 1997, I went over to visit you in the UK, and I brought a bean burrito without onions and a Mexi Melt with no pico sauce that you happily ate at 7:30 in the morning in the Heathrow Airport in London. But again, that isn't a fitting tribute because there are no Taco Bells in space. Then there was your service to our country. 5 years in the military, more than 20 years serving Congress. Again, that's a tribute that will stand forever, and there are many lives that you've touched with that service. So again, nothing we can do about that tribute. So in the end, space was it. I can tell you that every day you've been gone, we miss you terribly, and that'll never go away. But what I am comforted to know is that you'll be above us. And, you know, as any brothers would say, thousands of miles apart sometimes is not a bad thing, but it does help me remember every day that we had. So I'm grateful to be able to video this for you, and I know someday we'll see each other again. So Godspeed, and I love you, David.
Christian Burned Nowicki. Enjoy your dream. Have fun.
Chris was a man of broad interests, ranging from fishing, to music, to martial arts, to technology, to traveling, to scuba diving, and to flying. He always said he wanted to take me in a helicopter. Unfortunately, we never got a chance. He also had a great fascination with antiques. For example, his 1920s Model A that he was so excited to get. It was like a kid opening presents on Christmas. As my mom liked to put it, she had 4 kids, not 3. He has so many interests, it was like there's nothing he's not interested in. He was a geek, as he liked to call himself. He was also a voracious reader, with a particular interest in sci-fi and speculative fiction. He was always curious and loved to explore ideas and places. He often got excited over the idea of surviving in space or colonizing other worlds. In the summer of 2019, he took the kids on a 6-hour drive with hardly any stops to Alabama to attend space camp. It was obvious he was more excited than the kids. In recent years, he even applied to NASA's civilian astronaut program. Naturally, when we heard about this option for him to touch space, everyone immediately said, yes, that's it, that's Chris. He will have a blast. So Chris, wherever you may be right now, as much as we love and miss you, we hope you enjoy this trip to fulfilling your dream.
Robert Wayne Oglesby. Bob probably started planning his flying career path in the womb. In his youth, when he was old enough, he joined the Civil Air Patrol Cadet Program. His plan worked, and he spent 5 years in the Navy and was able to fly off aircraft carriers. Bob's ultimate goal had always been to be a commercial airline pilot, so he was hired by United Airlines in 1966 and flew for them for 34 years. He started in the DC-8, followed by the 727, 737, and finishing on the 747 flying out of San Francisco to Sydney, Tokyo, Singapore, Auckland, Seoul, and was the captain on the inaugural nonstop flight from Beijing to San Francisco. Bob met his wife Sandy at the Layover Hotel rooftop pool in Honolulu. Sandy was a flight attendant who also flew out of Los Angeles. I'm thrilled that he will be on Elon Musk's SpaceX, as he was a great fan of all that he accomplished, especially Tesla. He purchased a silver Tesla S car, and it was his pride and joy. His chest puffed up and his dimples twitched every time he drove it. Celestis SpaceX is a perfect way to go. Joseph A. Ostrowski, love you to infinity and beyond.
I'm Carrie, and my husband and love of my life, Joseph Anthony Ostrowski, died by suicide after a long, brave battle with physical and mental pain. Joe is the greatest love and the greatest loss of my life. He was an amazing husband, incredibly kind, gentle man, wonderful uncle, son, son-in-law, brother, friend, and just a tremendous human being. I am heartbroken, but I'm also honored to carry out his wish that his ashes be shot into space in a rocket. And he told me just that in those words as we were driving home from the Grand Canyon many years ago when we were much younger. And we were just having a good time and talking about life and death and where we'd want our ashes sprinkled when we died. And we chose a couple of different locations where we could be together. And then Joe told me he wanted to be shot into space in a rocket. And it was just so random and out of the blue. And as I recall, I laughed and I said, good luck with that. And I told him that I would if I could, but I did not think it was possible or that it would be possible in our lifetimes. And I don't really think he did either. But I'm glad he told me and shared that desire and wish with me. And I had no idea what knowing and loving him and that conversation would set into motion. But here I am on the countdown of days until the rocket launch and fulfilling his wish. He would often go outside and stare at the starlit sky and look for satellites, and it thrilled and excited him every single time. He found joy in it. And if there had been an opportunity to go to space as a civilian while he was alive, Joe would have been first in line. And I would have happily dropped him off, but I wouldn't have gone with him. I would have supported that dream. So, babe, I give this to you in the only possible way I know how. And as you move across the sky in meteor showers, I will watch for you between the stars and across the moon and into the sunlight. And as we used to say to each other, I love you to infinity and beyond that. I love you.
Louis Palmerini, the road goes on forever. John Peckham, Carol Pelham, wait for me, Marta. Suzanne Phillips, David Allen Pillagy, Christopher Scott Port, we love you. Thomas N. Prinster, your final flight, my love.
This video is for my late husband, Tom Prinster, who died in August of 2018. He died very suddenly, very unexpectedly. Tom was a big guy. He was a very athletic man. He loved to be up in the air. When he skied, he liked jumping. He jumped on a trampoline and turned himself upside down at 6'5" and 225 pounds. He was also a pilot at a very young age. One thing that defined Tom's life was an event that occurred in 1982. Tom was flying a commercial plane with 10 passengers aboard. It burst into flame while he was flying it, and he landed it on a frozen reservoir, saving 11 out of the 12 passengers on board. Tom did not like being known only for this event. He lived a very full and productive life beyond 1982. Tom was a writer. He was a psychotherapist, and he had an incredible sense of humor. He was brilliant. And so when he said he would like his ashes shot into space, I thought that was ridiculous, but I found Celestis. So here goes, Tom, your final flight, my love.
Barbara Ray, loving always into forever. Albert John Reinert, for all mankind.
I've been a space dork since I was a little kid. I grew up watching people land on the moon and thought that was the most extraordinary thing that I'd ever seen.
I watched For All Mankind, and it was the most amazing space film I'd ever seen, because I think it answered the question, how does it feel to go into space? The film was released in 1989, and it went on to win the Audience Award and the Best Doc Award at Sundance that year. It was nominated for an Academy Award.
You know, I knew about Al before I got involved with Apollo 13, the screenplay that he wrote with Bill Broyles, because I love Texas Monthly. And Al's writing there was rich and remarkable. He's a great storyteller. When it came to Apollo 13, his knowledge was so deep, and his connection to the humanity of that story so rich and specific. Again, For All Mankind was an absolute work of genius. Al lit up every room that he walked into. He was completely unassuming, and yet there was this intelligence to go with a wit.
The Al I knew, and I didn't know him well, but I knew him intently, was a great journalist and a great storyteller. He was a very good collaborator and somebody that was a pleasure to participate in.
I'm not convinced the human race is going to be around 1,000 years from now. But if it is, hopefully the human race will have really joined the universe, gone out and explored the solar system, done it as one species, one race, and they will look back at the space station at the beginning of that. I mean, that's when they all began to come together to do this exploration together, because it's the only way it's ever going to happen. I hope that by becoming part of the universe, by realizing what our place is in the universe and learning about what our place is in the universe, we will become wiser, because we really need to become wiser. I mean, we're pretty smart, but we're not very wise. And understanding where we fit in the big picture is going to help us get there. You can think about all the cool things we're going to do in the future in outer space. I mean, we're like, one of these days, a lot of ordinary people like us are going to get to go.
Jimmy Dale Reynolds. To boldly go as one, Jim, your voyage continues. Jimmy had a Starfleet fitting for any intergalactic voyage. On board the USS Reynolds Prize is his loving wife, Nancy Hernandez, who served as his loyal first lieutenant, his daughter, Wendy, acting as chief engineer, and his youngest daughter, Courtney, acting as operations manager. His crew also consisted of his grandchildren. Prior to joining the USS Reynolds Prize, Jim volunteered to serve in the United States Navy for 4 years and was a veteran of the Vietnam War. A true veteran, and because he was a volunteer, he was awarded the National Service Ribbon. Jim was the kindest, most loving, generous man, and he had the biggest heart. He was always willing to help you out no matter what. He is deeply missed by all who knew him. Isn't it ironic that Jim passed on Earth Day during a meteor shower? To boldly go as one, Jim, your voyage continues. Don Roger Richardson, I am all that I grok. Don Richardson was one of the biggest science fiction and science fans ever, although he had no science background in his real life or training. One of his greatest regrets was that he was physically unable to become an astronaut due to bad eyesight for most of his life. Don met his wife Carolyn in 1988 when they were both teaching classes for IRS. Not surprisingly, they came together over a Trivial Pursuit question about Star Wars. This rapidly led to a first date and then 5 years of dating before tying the knot. We always joked about it being a mixed marriage, with him a Star Trek fan and Carolyn a Star Wars fan. The last thing we did together was watch Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, his favorite of the Star Trek movies. You are finally getting your wish to be in space, sweetie. I hope you enjoy the ride. John David Glenn Rogers, fulfilling your spaceflight dream. James M. Roofer, live long and prosper. He was a self-proclaimed geek and technology was his favorite hobby. He even created a movie about each of the kids' births, including writing a script complete with music and film editing, and hosted geek game nights with his wife where they and their friends would get together to play board games like Catan, Pandemic, and Castles of Mad King Ludwig. James was intelligent and kind-hearted, and above all else, James loved his family dearly. His greatest accomplishment in life was being a daddy. Dr. Marco Aurelio Satiro, nothing lost, everything transformed. Avante, love.
In loving memory of Marco Aurelio Satiro, I wanted to share why I chose to send my husband Marco to orbit the Earth on board of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Horizon Flight. I can hear him saying, "It's terminally cool." Marco loved Star Wars. Fun fact. When the first Star Wars movie came out in the theaters, he was 15 years old. He watched the movie 32 times in the theater, countless other times at home as a family or alone. Movies, books, music, toys, and any scene in Star Wars would make him smile so big. His eyes would sparkle and we would lose him to it. Anything related to science fiction, science, space, flying vessels, flying machines, wars, so many interests. Besides a sharp mind, Marco had a very steady hand. He learned to make and took part in many remote control sailboat regattas during his preteen and early teenage years. He assembled many airplane models. Some he made from scratch, starting from balsa wood, a skill he learned from his father. Our kids and a few of our friends have some toys and exclusive items crafted by him. He used to say that the hours he spent on his hobbies helped him to think about problems and equations he was trying to solve. Marco was an extraordinary man. Born in a loving family in São Paulo, Brazil, his parents provided him with a life where education was valued, and Marco took to it very young. As we got to know one another, I came to hear the stories of how he decided he wanted to become a chemical engineer very young, and his decision never changed. Tales of when he almost burned down his parents' house by mixing chemicals to release hydrogen, or when he decided to cure his grandfather's fig tree by injecting potassium permanganate on its trunk, and so many other funny stories. When I first met Marco, I was taken by him for so many reasons. His charm and discreet ways to be romantic, his humble way to be a gentleman, the simple way he carried himself through life and yet be bigger than life itself. Marco was easy to get along with. He was so easy to relate and to make friends. He was a giant teddy bear. His laughter was loud and sincere. His hugs were so warm and embracing. His mind was never in resting mode, never. As a young man, he ignored the odds and left Brazil. He wanted more science and opportunities to become better in his professional area. Shortly after, he brought me to Canada. Such a loving father he was. I miss him so much. I miss seeing him with the kids, watching movies, joking around, laughing and being silly. The four of us had such great trips and experiences. So many amazing memories as a family. I miss how he made me laugh, how he complimented me daily and made me feel so pretty. He liked my cooking and always kept his promises to me. When he got married, money was short, so we didn't go on a honeymoon. That day, Marco asked me, where would I like to go if we were to be together for our 25th anniversary? He would take me. I answered, I would like to go to Paris. In May 2013, Marco took me to Paris for a month, and it was an unforgettable trip. As a couple, we traveled to so many amazing places. We always had fun and learned together. Always romantic, always with a surprise, a gift, a hug, and many, many kisses to me. So how can I not send this man to space, to orbit the Earth? I know Marco would love every single moment of it. He just would love it. He would be smiling and learning. I know that. I also know that our kids and I will look at the skies and know that he's up there smiling, just as we smile right back to him, because nothing is ever lost, everything transformed, as he taught us. Bon voyage, my love, until we see again.
Keaton Sayes, we love you. We will never not think about you.
This space flight is for my son Kian, who will forever be my twin flame, who may no longer be here physically, but has left such an intellectual, emotional, and spiritual impact that it surpasses the physical. He came into this world so beautiful, and he lived a beautiful, tragic, extraordinary life. And he left us that way. And I will never not think of him. He will always be with me until I can be with him. I see the signals in the clouds, the smoke signals he sends. when the wind blows. I can hear his voice. I can see his face, and I don't ever want to lose it. So, his love for the sky and for the stars and for space is the only way I can memorialize him. And it's not even anywhere near appropriate. So Keaton Perry says, Mom loves you. I've always loved you, and I will continue to do that. And I'm so sorry you are not here. And I just don't know how to live without you, but I'm trying. I'm doing. And you saved me a seat. And until we meet again in the stars, I love you, baby.
James Arthur Schubert. David Shannon, Space, the Final Frontier.
Hello, my name is Joanne Shannon, and this tribute is for my husband, David Shannon. He was an amazing man, and I want to tell you a little bit about him. He was always fascinated with space and told me that he would, if an alien landed a spaceship in his front yard and offered him a ride, he would definitely take it with no questions asked. He wanted to be an astronaut, but that wasn't possible at the time. You either needed to be a test pilot or have a PhD. And so he decided to use his engineering skills to join the HRSI program and make the heat shield for the shuttle. He was fortunate enough to be one of the engineers that flew to the Cape to watch the first shuttle take off. And then they flew back to LA to watch the shuttle land. A couple months after the flight, Crippen and Young came to the Lockheed facility in Sunnyvale and shook the hands of all the engineers that worked on the program and told them that they did an excellent job, a job well done. And Dave said that was the highlight of his career, was being able to meet Crippen and Young. He was a gentleman, and he always thought of others, and he enjoyed helping younger students and even colleagues as well if they needed assistance with engineering or understanding the space program. And so we know that he would be thrilled that he's going into outer space on a Falcon 9 rocket. The family and friends thank Celestis for giving us this opportunity for our loved ones to go into outer space. So Dave, we want you to enjoy your ride, and we love you.
Kennedy Claire Sharrock, in perpetuum et unum diem. Mark Stewart, always look to the heavens.
Mark Stewart was born on September 15, 1979, in Braunlage, Germany, and passed away suddenly and unexpectedly from heart failure on May 20, 2018, in Crowley, Texas. The heavens and all their glories and mystery captivated Mark from a very young age. The VCR constantly held Star Wars or Superman movies. Star Trek: The Next Generation was not to be missed television. The blueprints of the Starship Enterprise were studied. Legos created rocket ships and space shuttles. His passion for aviation and space carried on throughout his life and influenced many of his activities and trips. A visit to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in 2017 to see the total eclipse of the sun was a highlight of his life. His words from a social media post of his experience: totality. No picture can capture the grandeur and otherworldly properties of totality. Amazing. We can't remember him without a telescope. He knew the details of every plane and shuttle. Mark lived a life looking up at the skies and jumping at every opportunity to explore them. He summited Kilimanjaro, helicoptered over Kilauea, Victoria Falls, and Uluru, climbed Huayna Picchu, hiked Denali, skydove 3 times, explored the night skies of the pyramids in Egypt, and visited nearly 50 countries and countless national parks. He marched for science. He flew around the world in 8 days across 24 time zones and in a variety of aircraft. Mark would want us to mention that last part. It was important to him. Not only would Mark never turn down a trip, there's also no doubt space travel has always been in his future. Now we have a chance to make it so. Always looking up to you, Marco Polo. We love you.
Gordon Scott Stroll, setting you free to soar and be at peace. Like many baby boomers, Gordon was a witness to and was enthralled with America's travels into space and to the moon. As an amateur astronomer, the space program sparked his imagination and ignited the desire to reach the stars himself. He was enchanted with the idea of at least going to space after he passed away. Beyond his enchantment with spaceflight, Gordon was an avid reader, a student of history, and a demonstrated talent in the culinary arts. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of music and a love for all genres of music, and he loved his family beyond measure. Christopher Charles Swagger.
年継ぐ田中愛してる
年継ぐ田中レーダーの開発に長年携わっていたトシちゃん。そのレーダーで宇宙に旅立つのは思ってもみなかったでしょうね。そのロケットに乗っていつも一緒に旅行していたのに、今度ばかりは私は見送るだけになってしまいました。空の上から私の姿を見つけたら手を振って、私も手を振るからね。今までいろいろなところで関わっていた場所、今は花が咲いてニュースで聞くたびに、あ、トシちゃんよかったねと今度は空に向かって叫ぶよ。トシちゃんが迎えに来てくれるまで私は元気に明るく生きていきます。のりこ、愛するトシちゃんへ。
Richard Neil Tooker, Bucket List Spaceflight. We often don't really know what an impact someone's life has had until they're gone. Such was the case with my husband, Richard. I knew that he was a great guy and that people universally liked him, but I did not expect the passion and emotion that people expressed when they heard he was gone. Richard was a Renaissance man, a baby boomer who was always technologically ahead of his peers. He was a pioneer. He was fortunate to have entered the direct marketing business before it was a thing, and ended up being one of the early gurus in this field. Being a creative genius, Richard needed many different creative outlets in his life, and was lucky enough to be able to afford them. He was an amazing wildlife artist, excellent photographer, scuba diver, made beautiful stained glass, and had every geeky electronic man toy. We traveled the world. Needless to say, we were crazy about Star Trek and early Star Wars. Richard wrote a science fiction novel, The Titicaca Effect, available on Amazon. He requested that his remains be sent into space, but given the opportunity, he would certainly have made the trip himself. Francis J. Tremblay, on such a timeless flight.
Hi, this video transmission is in honor of Francis Tremblay. Our dad was a very loving, easygoing man, and with my mom raised 3 loving, caring children and grandsons who went on to do the same. Everyone who knew him liked him. He overcame many emotional and physical hardships, both in his youth and adulthood, with integrity, humor, and perseverance. One major hardship in his life was the death of his parents at different times in his preteen years. Another major obstacle that followed him throughout his life was his condition of narcolepsy cataplexy, a little-known condition in the 60s when he was diagnosed. An entry in his yearbook states, "Fran, you'll go far if you can stay awake." And he did go far. He went on to become a very respected computer programmer in the infancy of computers and satellites. He was instrumental in the installations of the first satellites in countries the likes of Thailand and Chile, not letting his condition hinder nor define him. Needless to say, his condition was the source of many funny stories and pictures. Dinner was spent with one eye on your plate and one eye on Dad's plate, getting ready to pull it out of the way of his falling head. Good for him was the fact that well before my sister, brother, and I were teenagers, he was already used to sleepless nights. Bad for us was that he was the built-in security system. There was no sneaking in past curfew because he never knew when he would be awake or asleep. When TV remote controls became the norm, sounds of them falling from a relaxed hand became a constant. No one need say, "What was that noise?" We would just look at each other and laugh and say, "Hopefully it didn't break." Universal remotes were a godsend. You could just run to the store and get another. I remember visiting one time at their house, grabbing a box to be taken to the recycling center. It contained at least 10 remotes. When I pointed to it and said, "Hey, what's this?" he just grinned. He took all of his hurdles, mishaps, and teasings with an innate sense of humor and a mild-mannered attitude. Which is why, when I liken him to a superhero, as all fathers are or should be, he was Superman in my eyes. As a child, to me, he was handsome, strong, and invincible. But as an adult, he was Clark Kent all the way. Our father had a wide range of interests and hobbies, 3 of which overlapped. Those were science fiction, reading, and space. Regular Sunday dinners would find him at my kitchen table on the laptop perusing the SpaceX website, patiently waiting for someone to walk by so he could enthusiastically enlighten and update them with news of the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy. The Horizon Flight was specifically chosen because of the provider and the transport vehicle. We can't think of a more tender and respectful way to honor this gentle man than by his ashes being brought to space via SpaceX and the Falcon 9. I have a favorite quote that I myself try to mimic, and the last 2 sentences of it really sums up my father, and it states, "Don't strive to make your presence noticed, just make your absence felt. And his absence is surely felt. Until we meet again, Dad, we love you."
Herbert Tournier, fulfilling your spaceflight dream. He told me that he had placed his life on hold in the mid-70s and applied to NASA for a chance to become an astronaut on the first space shuttle launch, and after approximately 5 years, he heard from NASA that he did not qualify due to his lack of flight experience. This never discouraged him. He loved space and science. May this flight make all of my brother's final wishes become true. I love and miss you, Herb. Your little sister, Carol. Scott Ulrich, we will see you in the stars.
Hi, I'm Heather Ulrich, Scott Ulrich's wife of 25 years, who's a participant on the Horizon Flight. Scott was a dreamer. He loved space. He was a fun haver. He never sat still. Scott set goals for himself and always achieved them, exceeded them actually. He was a Trekkie, if you can't tell. This is what he wanted to be launching to space after he passed. He did everything, every adventure possible. He rode bicycles. He scuba dived, he skydived, he ran marathons, he ran like Spartans, savage races, anything to push himself to the limit. Constantly just going. He told me once that if he could go live on Mars, he would do it, even leaving the kids and I, and not look back. Not that he didn't love us, but it was his dream to be in space. He would be so giddy right now knowing this was going on. I mean, like a 2-year-old waiting for Santa. He just loved life, loved people. He didn't meet a person that he didn't know everything about after he talked to him for 5 minutes. He was very, very social. He just wanted everyone to be happy and do the best that they could possibly do. So on that note, I really appreciate that this program is available so that we could fulfill his dreams. And just, I can't wait to be at the launch and see him launched and just think about how happy he would be. Thank you.
Bernard Robert Weinstein. Michael Edward Wellham. He lived, laughed, and loved.
He had pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed in February of 2018 and passed away in June of the same year. From late March to late May, he was still really lucid, so I asked him what's something that he wished he could have done and he never got to, and he told me that he wished he could have been an astronaut. So he thought about it and he was like, actually, never mind, I'm going to get to do that now. So my dad worked at NASA as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, that was a really big part of my life. I remember back when I was in kindergarten, we had a day where we dressed up as what we thought we would be in 20 or 25 years. And I dressed up as a NASA engineer. I had a little clipboard with stickers from different space missions that my dad had given me. He worked a lot with the International Space Station. He put a rack called the Fluids and Combustion Rack up there, he and his team did. So I got to send commands to that from Earth one time. One time we gave an astronaut a tour of the research center where he worked up in Ohio. I got this tattoo right here after he died. They took his ashes. Since they're just carbon, they can mix them with black tattoo ink. And so all of the outlines on this astronaut tattoo have my dad's ashes in them. That was inspired by that conversation and him saying that he finally gets to be an astronaut. I just wanted to commemorate him in some way. I have this one as well, the "We are so proud to call you our son, love Dad." It's from a Christmas card. It doesn't have, that one doesn't have his ashes in it, but I like that they're right next to each other. It's like fulfilling a wish that he had, even though it's not in the way that we expected it to. It's still, we're actually getting to do that for him. So I'm just really glad that this opportunity exists.
Robert Scott Welty. Go with peace and love. Rob spent many hours at the Houston Museum of Natural Science as a child. In pursuit of his hobby, he participated in their space simulation launch for Apple, made and launched hobby rockets, and enjoyed the field of astronomy. Robert D. Wesley, fulfilling your spaceflight dream. Fly away. Andrew G. White III. We love you, Dad. Michael Whiskerchin. May your legacy and stories be never-ending. Cheers.
Mike grew up in a small dairy farming community in Wisconsin. He was a little mischievous there, according to his family, and drove his dad nuts with his efforts to make improvements in how things were done on the farm. He exhibited a early and natural desire to understand how things work, and that characteristic led him into the study of physics. and that's where he developed his passion for space science and the space program. That passion fueled his 40-plus year career that included space plasma research, NASA and university administration, STEM education, student mentoring, and as an early and vocal promoter of space commercialization. One highlight of his career while at NASA headquarters was being program scientist for the Spacelab 1 shuttle mission. That became the foundation of much of his sought-after experience, knowledge, and contacts after leaving NASA. As rewarding and enriching as that experience was, Mike preferred the academic setting. It was there, he felt, that he could make the most difference by nurturing and preparing the next generation of the aerospace-related workforce. He used his administrative positions to create innovative university-industry partnerships to improve the training and educational experiences of college students in various fields of study. While director of the California Space Grant for nearly 20 years, he grew the consortium from 3 to 28 universities and community colleges across the state, providing mentorship and scholarship opportunities that impacted the lives of thousands of students. But he found his greatest rewards in his own student mentoring and the relationships he developed with his students. He loved talking with them, sharing his experiences, all the while helping them identify their own passions and dreams. He was proud of what his students accomplished. Many have gone on to careers in aerospace, including at SpaceX. In fact, it was a former student still working there who suggested Celestis as a way to pay tribute to Dr. Mike, as his students like to call him. Mike would be ecstatic knowing he is part of this Horizon flight, traveling in a SpaceX vehicle, his work and his vision having come full circle. Despite his many accomplishments, Mike was very humble, preferred to refer to himself as just a farm boy from Wisconsin who was lucky enough to be able to follow his dreams. That's probably why helping others achieve their dreams and goals was so important to him. Those who knew him liked to tease him with the old cliche, "It's not rocket science." But we were proud of him and bragged about him as our family's rocket scientist. Mike was not one to shy away from conversation. He was well known for his gift of gab, as a matter of fact. He was very sociable and approachable, and could carry on an engaging conversation with people from all walks of life, from his dog park friends to his most esteemed colleagues. His excitement and his passion left a lasting impression with everyone. We know, without a doubt, that he would have been more than thrilled to meet his fellow travelers on the Horizon flight and to talk with them all about their shared interests in space. So, to Mike and all of the Horizon flight participants, we raise a toast to your dreams, to your legacy, to your next journey. Bon voyage, have a blast.
Dr. Mike enjoyed a long and illustrious career while following his passion for space science as a researcher, teacher, mentor, and administrator. Mike took his love of space science and the space program to a position at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. Mike was also program scientist for the Spacelab 1 STS-9 shuttle mission. While there and after leaving NASA to return to academia, he was frequently sought out for his knowledge of shuttle and NASA operations. Dr. Mike spent the last 20 years of his career at the University of California at San Diego. He worked alongside Dr. James Arnold and Dr. Sally Ride to nurture the next generation of scientists, engineers, and technology workforce. Mike carried his work ethic and sense of responsibility into his personal life as well. At home, he was a devoted husband and father, handyman, chef, gardener, coach and cheerleader, comedian, storyteller, and perpetual advice giver, and the family's rocket scientist. He somehow managed, once again, to balance the demands of his work with the needs of his family and his own interests. He was our rock and our provider, always ready with his time, sense of humor, encouragement, and wisdom whenever we needed it. Mike may no longer be with us on Earth, but he will not be forgotten, and his legacy will live on. And now, with the Horizon flight, his dream of being in space can be fulfilled. We will watch his bright star in the sky and know he is smiling down on us, watching us, and telling us wonderful stories about his adventure. Jeffrey Scott Wolfgang, may the Force be with you. Leon Ward Wright, love of freedom and flying. Laura Lamaji Yokomitsu.